for bringing us in. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Rolling right in. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Oh, good, you've had your caffeine. Excellent, excellent. And good morning in YouTube land. This is the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. It's Sunday, January 29th of 2023. I am still Reverend Dr. Kate R. Walker. I am still delighted to serve as the minister of this beloved, beloved community. Welcome, welcome to all of you. For those with visual disability, I'm a 59-year-old white female with light brown hair, mid-length bob cut. I wear glasses, and today I'm wearing a multicolored red, blue, green top. I look a lot like Chris this morning, so don't get us confused. Chris Rest, thank you. You are all welcome here. If you are watching now on YouTube or some point in the future, we are so glad that you hit the click and chose to be with us. If you are brand new, never walked in our doors until this morning or hit our YouTube channel, you are welcome here. Whatever brought you through our doors or onto YouTube, we're delighted to have you here. We are a growing, all learning, all loved community committed to social justice. We are a community of many, many beliefs, many origins, many sexualities, many genders, and we are here together, discovering what love is all about. We are a community working for justice wherever the heavy weight of oppression has woven into the fabric of life. If you would like to know more about us, go to our website, First Unitarian Church, just Google that. And down at the bottom, you'll find a link to fill out a form to fill out for our newsletter. You can find out more about us. But send us your email. Be connected with us. If you're here in person, check out our welcome desk where you can talk with people and find out more about us and again, get on our email list. We have a small dedicated group after service on Zoom. If you would like to get a link for that, please just send an email to firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com. It's all one word, firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com, and you'll get an automated email with a link to that Zoom. Or if you're here in person, we will have social hour downstairs in the Undercroft. Is it downstairs or Schweitzer? Downstairs. Yep, downstairs in the Undercroft. We're delighted to have you all here. If I do want to raise that, my beloved members, if any of you are experiencing financial challenges and you need temporary financial assistance, please contact me. Please reach out to me by phone or by email. I'm extension 100 and minister at first-unitarian-pgh.org is my email. We have a special fund dedicated just for people who are experiencing short-term financial difficulty. So please, please. So I am so delighted today to welcome to our worship service an amazing community leader, Farooq al-Said. He's an award-winning, Emmy-nominated artivist. I love that word, artivist. It's a combination of artist and activist from Toronto, Canada, residing here in Pittsburgh via England, was in there as well, and New York, I understand. He has gone from a once incarcerated individual to a K-8 classroom teacher, and now serves as Director of Operations for the National Arts and Activism Collective OneHood Media right here in Pittsburgh. MC, songwriter, educator, personal human being that you just want to have a cup of tea with or brunch. Professionally known as Said, but goes by Farooq as well, has been successful in so many mediums. A major label deal, success in the blog era of rap. You're gonna have to tell me what that is at some point. He turned his attention to education and activism, helping create award-winning arts and education platform. Farooq has merged his musical endeavors into social activism by teaching in juvenile detention centers, schools, and even the University of Sydney in Australia. So we're just so delighted to have Farooq here this morning. And I want to draw your attention that this is about art and activism, yeah? We have a new workshop coming up in a couple weeks right here in our own community, opportunity for you to work through art, through particularly collage work, that a class that is being led by our own Alice Carnes and Mary Shinhoven. This is on February 11th and 12th. If you are interested, it's limited capacity for this class. It's a wonderful workshop over that weekend. Just reach out to them, and then all the collages will then be put on display for the March Art Show downstairs. So, which is really an amazing way for, and it's all about hope. It's about reimagining our future. So if you find your hope is waning, if you find that you just can't envision a beautiful world, come and be amongst those and work it through our heart and our soul through art. So please see Mary Shinhoven, give her a call or email, and she'll get you signed up. So I invite you now to settle in, arrive in body and spirit. Find yourself connected with one another in this time, in this space. Reaching out into the future and the past. We are here with the collective beloved community. We are here together to worship. We turn now to our chalice lighting, and I've asked Farooq to light our chalice as I offer the words. This is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, a faith that has deep roots in activism, deep roots in bringing the heart and the mind and the body together into beloved community, inspiring and bringing in the marginalized voices again and again. May this light inspire us to always invite in those marginalized voices that need to be heard, need to be seen, need to be held. Welcome, welcome to you all.
Good morning. Yeah, so I echo Reverend Kate's words of welcome. Come, come, whoever you are. These words of Rumi are the words for our opening song, which are found in your order of service. I invite you to rise in body and spirit.
Before I forget, I have joyful and sorrowful news. The children are going to be staying with us throughout the worship. Yay. Because our teachers are sick. Aww. So the children are welcome to stay through the worship, and we're going to send our blessings to so many of our teachers who are ill this morning and hope that they all get better. Indeed, indeed. And so we'll send our love. So we will not be sending the children, singing them out after I finish the story, okay? Great. I'm going to tell a story about why our children made this paper chain. Is there anybody in the room who helped make this? It was like a week or two ago. Does it all look? I know that was a long time ago. A week or two. Yeah. So I want to tell a story about why they made this chain and how important it is. So in the mid-19th century, around the mid-1800s, there was a man by the name of Henry David Thoreau. Henry David Thoreau, who some Unitarians like to claim, but he really, he did have a strong affinity to Unitarians and was around a lot of Unitarians. But at that time that we want to talk about, there was a war with Mexico, between the U.S. and Mexico. Henry David Thoreau and a lot of other people objected to that war. They thought the U.S. was just being a big old bully with Mexico. So he said, I'm not going to pay my taxes that are going to support a war that I don't support, right? I don't want to support that war, so I'm not paying my taxes for that war. What did the government do? And this is Henry David Thoreau. What do you think the government did? Put him in jail. That's right. They put him in jail. You have to pay your taxes, said the government. So he went to jail, and that's exactly what Thoreau wanted. He wanted to make a point. His good friend, he had good friends who came to talk with him and said, what are you doing? You have the money to pay your taxes. One of them was Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a Unitarian minister. So Ralph says to David, hey, Henry David Thoreau, why aren't you paying your taxes? And you know what Henry David Thoreau said to Ralph Waldo Emerson? Question is not what am I doing in here? What are you doing out there? Yeah. What are you doing out there to protest the war? Well, unfortunately, one of Thoreau's relatives paid the taxes. So he was released from jail. But he went on to write an essay, a famous essay called Civil Disobedience. Anybody ever hear that? Civil Disobedience. It was a powerful essay about how some laws are so unjust that we shouldn't obey them. Imagine that. Some laws are so unfair, we shouldn't obey them. We might go to jail for it, but that's an act of civil disobedience, but it's peaceful, he said. It's peaceful. That essay inspired somebody else. This man is Mahatma Gandhi, who was born in India during a troubled time. And he went for a while to South Africa to work. He was a lawyer. But what he discovered in South Africa is that as an Indian, he didn't have all the same rights as the white people. That made him really angry. He didn't have the same rights, neither did his other people of color. The black African Americans did not have the same rights. He got really angry, and he got frustrated, and he went back to India. And he, at some point, read Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience. And that inspired him to inspire his fellow people from India to, who was he fighting against? Anybody remember? The great British Empire. Yeah, so he inspired a lot of people for peaceful protest to not obey all the laws, so the British Empire would leave India. So Henry David Thoreau and Gandhi, they inspired somebody else. Who's that? Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King. He read Civil Disobedience, and he read about Gandhi. And so 100 years after Thoreau, Dr. King was inspired for peaceful protest, for civil disobedience, even to the point of going to jail. So the children made a chain about how we influence one another. We may feel like we're all alone in some act, but we forget that people may be inspired by what we do, what we say, what we sing, and sometimes is when we're silent as well. Also a powerful message. So I just love this, as it talks about Gandhi and King and Thoreau and the children who are being inspired by all those people today. So thank you to all of our children for reminding us about the chain of influence in our beloved community. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to put on a different hat now and go over there and ask for your money. When you give money, you influence others. Did you know that? It is time for the offertory, and the ushers will be coming forward in a moment for that offertory. I hope there's a wonderful podcast I listened to this week about influence, and one of them was peer pressure, and they talked about the offering plate going by. Yeah? They talk about how important it is to see money in the offering plate, and then people are inspired to put money in. We will take your money in the offering plate. You can mail it in. You can do it by text. The information is in the order of service. And as we are doing now, every month we share our plate with a wonderful organization that we highly value, and this month it is Habitat for Humanity, out there building homes for people who desperately, desperately need them right here in Pittsburgh. So thank you all very much for your continued generosity, for supporting this community, and now carefully support each other in our social influence. Will the ushers please come forward?
These words of last should use to sit and dream and read and learn about the world. Outside our world of here and now, our problem world, to dream of vast horizons of the soul, of dreams made whole, unfettered, free. All you who are dreamers too, help me make the world anew.
Thank you. Thank you. My beloved, I know there continue to be deep sorrows in our lives and celebrations, and I hope you all continue to share them with one another. And I hope you know that whenever you would like to have that publicly shared, just send me an email or pick up the phone. I'd be happy to share that with the community. I am very sad to share that Mary Widener's sister Jenna died on Friday from lung cancer. And Mary was with her, and our hearts are with their family. It was very fast. But yet on this very same day, they were dealing with their grief. They also were dealing with the joy that they have a brand new granddaughter. The circle of life and death, Wren Harper Pashek was born just about the same time as the death. So their family is on a roller coaster ride, and we hold them. We hold them. I also invite our prayers today specifically for the family of Tyree Nichols in Memphis, who are just going through a horrific time right now. But we also are remembering not only they, but so many of our Black community members and people of color who continue to experience police brutality. This should never have happened. Tyree was a son, a father, a friend, a Black Lives Matter activist, a creative soul, and a photographer. And we hold that wholeness in this human being. I invite you into a time of personal prayer and meditation and silence. Spirit of love, fill our hearts. Help heal our wounds. Remind us of your powerful presence when we find life is overwhelming, when death has come too soon, when violence is always too close. Spirit of love, help heal our wounds. Spirit of life, fill our bodies with your energy, your sustenance, your beauty. When the road is too long and too weary, when we are tired to the bone and our muscles exhausted and we have no more to give, Remind us, Spirit of life, that we have the capacity to grow, to change, to emerge, to love again, to feel joy in spite of it all. Spirit of the Holy, the God of many names that has been with us throughout the ages, when we have called out in our darkest hours, remind us of the blessings of life, even amongst our sorrows. Remind us to reach out to community, to our friends, our family, as we build again and again, beloved community, through love, through justice, through life. Blessed be, and amen.
Now, I invite you now to take a deep breath. These words are printed in your order of service. Circle round. Circle round for freedom, for peace, for release, for the planet, for each soul. So I invite you to move your bodies now. Please stand up, and like we were, let's face the center, face one another.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. This is dope. This is cool for me, man. This is probably, I think I was just talking to the Reverend Doctor. This may be my 12th time ever in the church. But it's cool though. And she kind of gave me this is dope. She kind of gave me a crash course in Unitarianism, and I was like, yo, this kind of sounds like Islam. I like this. This is familiar to me. So, my name is Farooq Al-Said. Some of you that may know me are probably wondering, like, yo, why is this brother at a church? Ain't he Muslim? I was like, yeah, but if you're a good Christian, you're a good Muslim. So, here we are. Those of you who aren't familiar with OneHood Media, we are a national arts and education and social justice collective based here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, right? And I think over the last 4 years, 5 years maybe, we've come to a lot of attention in the city just around, issues of social justice and politics and arts and education and all these different things and all these mediums that we exist in. And it's interesting because when I was waiting to get let into the church, someone in the congregation had stopped me and said, "Is this gonna be about politics or religion?" And I was like, yes. Yeah. And I'm gonna start it off by saying this because as a black person, whether I like it or not, my existence is politicized, right? Living in this country, not being born in this country, my existence is politicized. Having the name that I do, Farooq Amin Al-Saeed, trust me, I got a flight to catch in the morning. TSA is about to let me know that my name is politicized. So I get to the airport extra early, just in case. Even with the TSA pre-check, I'm like, yo, listen, I gotta come just a little bit early so I can get my smoothie and then go through TSA. Listening to everything, I think we was like here the whole time. I started writing this like last week, maybe a little bit before. I've been on the road a lot. And when I was writing this, the video of Tyree Nichols hasn't been released yet, right? And I went back last night, and I was up to like 2 in the morning, not only playing PlayStation, but writing this. Listen, I had to save the world from machines, man. You all are lucky. You're lucky. I had a hard work. But so when I was writing this, I realized that there was a specific gravity that my original piece had lacked, right? And I hadn't included anything about Tyree Nichols. But people are saying, how is this racism? And how is this about social justice when it's black on black crime? And that was a very perplexing thing for me to read in the echo chamber that is social media, right? The very people who are saying that are ignorant or negligent to the depth and the powers of white supremacy. The entire system of policing is violent towards black people no matter what color the officer is. I don't know if anybody in here is familiar with James Baldwin, but I'm going to talk about 3 people pretty much throughout this whole thing. It was, James Baldwin, 2 other people I think you should know, Jesus and Moses. I would hope everybody, you never know. Hey, listen, James Baldwin has said that a black policeman could completely demolish you. He knew far more about you than a white policeman could ever, and you were without defenses before this black brother in uniform, whose entire reason for breathing seemed to be his hope to offer proof that he was black, but not black like you. And I thought that was very powerful. He said this in a piece called A Report from an Occupied Territory. James Baldwin also famously said something on the Jim Cavett show. I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white, and I know we have a Christian church which is black. And the most segregated hour in America is high noon on a Sunday. Now, I love that I see like an interfaith and like a very black and white denomination. I think that's super dope. And for everybody viewing at home, regardless of what you look like, I think this is dope that you tune in to hear this Muslim in the church talking about activism or prophethood. So, large up to you. I thought that piece with James Baldwin was very important to kind of start off with, to just lend respect to Tyree Nichols, and thank you for the moment of silence, because this is something that we experience as black people every day, specifically in the city and across the country. I wanted to call this activism and prophethood because I think if we look at both of those titles, right, activist and prophet, we see an abundance of similarities. And this isn't to conflate the two, right? It's rather to look at the actual work, because there's a calling to activism. My father was a Black Panther. My mother, God bless the dead, was from Beirut, Lebanon. So I think that, I was kind of called to it whether I wanted to be or not. And when I talk about activism, I'm not talking about, the social media activists who could change the whole world with a keystroke or save everybody with one post, right? Of course I'm being facetious, but, when you're online, people think that, like, social media activism is the end-all and be-all. What I'm talking about are the selfless advocates who overstand the inevitable scrutiny and separatism and still know that they're working towards something greater than them, so much that they may not even get a chance to see the meter move an iota in a lifetime. Yet and still, they toil away, seemingly banging their fists against a stone wall trying to shake the house for the greater good. And when you ask someone who is in this field why they do what they do, it's usually responded by they felt compelled, right? They were moved and they reacted to something they seen, much like many who are called to serve do. What did the brother do when he seen the burning bush? He was called to serve, right? I like to look at the Bible. See, I'm familiar with the Bible a little bit, right? I'm not a scholar. I'm not a hafiz. I'm not anybody that's more holier than thou or anything like that, right? But growing up in the meshes that I grew up in, we looked at the Bible pretty often. The Bible, which I like, is like a how-to manual on good trouble. It really is. And all respect to the late, great John Lewis, right? Good trouble. Activists now experience many of the same things as their, biblical counterparts did. Notoriety, followers, and even martyrdom, to some respect. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, perhaps the two most prominent in modern history to suffer the fate of modern-day martyrdom. And all too often, we look past the true happenings of the Lord's work that the prophets were doing, much of which involved conflict, bloodshed, adversity, and death. And all of this was in the name of liberation, rebellion, and servitude. Because activism, regardless of how you feel about it, is a service of the people. And all the prophets, may God be pleased with all of them, were servants of the Most High, but also of the people. They came from the people. You could talk to the prophets. You could see them walking. You could have conversation with them. You could disagree with them. You could stone them. You could persecute them. You could love and admire them, right? They were of us. They were from the community. The first scripture I'm going to quote, right, Bismillah, is Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and plead the widow's cause. Now, we talk about justice. It's a funny word, because when you break it down, it's just us, right? Justice is something that has escaped us in our communities since the inception. Justice is something that we clamor for so much that when officers become indicted, we already expect a not guilty verdict, so we celebrate the fact that they were just charged. This is something that has permeated the communities that we walk in as Black people since the end of so-called end of slavery, right? Now I'm going to jump over to the Quran. Surah An-Nisa, that's chapter 4, verse 58. O ye who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for God, even if it be against yourselves or your parents and your relatives, whether one is rich or poor, Allah is worthy of both. That's deep, right? Because that's basically saying the same thing from two different faiths. This is what I took that to mean. When you hear people say, go to Thanksgiving and mess it up and talk to your racist parents, that's what that means, right? When they say mess up your holiday, have that conversation with your racist uncle or auntie, that's where they got it from. That's what it means. It's good trouble, isn't it? It's good trouble. Protest has a strong presence in the Bible. In fact, a certain sect of Christianity is actually named after protesting. I didn't make this up. I'm good, but I'm not that good, right? I'm older than I look, but I'm not that old. The Protestants, they protested. Now, I'm going to spare you the kind of like the rabbit hole of how they actually got here in the conversation with the king and that, because clearly what I found out when I was in primary school is that Americans are taught totally something different than we're taught in the rest of the world about what the Protestants actually did. But just know that they got the name from protesting. And they were like, oh, listen, whatever you're doing here, I'm not cool with it, I protest. The king was like, all right, I hear you. That's how it went. I was there. I just said I wasn't there, but I was there. That's how it went, right? Biblically and Quranically, there's a decree from God to push back against oppression, right? That's in the scripture. I'm not entirely familiar with the Torah, but I'm sure it's in there someplace. And a variety of these actions include violence. One of the largest acts of protest, disobedience, courage, and activism in the history of mankind comes from who I like to fancy as the very first activist, Moses. May God be pleased with him. When Moses said, let my people go, that was the biblical version of Black Lives Matter. That's a fact. Come on, thank you. In the mess yet, we don't do it up, but I like that here. I like that. Can I get an amen? Amen. Woo, come on. I've always wanted to do that. I'm not going to lie to you. That's hot. All right. This is a heavy topic, but I'm going to try to lighten it up. You get me? Because, you got to laugh and keep from crying sometimes. Moses really was the first activist, right? At least the earliest and the most famous. The courage really it took and the fear that he combated to go into the palace and demand freedom. And the most important part is he casted aside his privilege and his station to serve the people, because Moses, even though they found him, he was raised as a prince. He had everything he could ever want. He never had to experience anything other than the lap of luxury into the rest of his days. But he was called to serve the people. Called to serve the people there, innit? If we look at the second Exodus, 11 and 12, one day, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and he looked on their burdens. And he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that way, and seeing nobody helping, he seen no one. He struck down the Egyptian and hit him in the sand. That's a bad man. What Moses had to do right there was advocate for someone in a station that was less than him, right? If we look at this today, how would that have played out? Good brother Moses would have been in a bad way. One of the most interesting parts of the Bible coming to life to me, it just happened like 2 years ago, right? When Moses went up to the mountain to get some one-on-one time with the Most High, he left his brother in charge. He said, Harun, take care of this. I got more pressing matters upstairs. Harun was like, I got you, bruv. Go on, do your thing. Talk to God in there. I got you. Aaron didn't have it. He didn't. He kind of folded under pressure. He's like, that fourth quarter came up. Aaron was like, ugh, I don't know. They want some stuff. They talking about the old gods, the old ways. We just walked for 40 days, bro. I don't know what to do. So what happened? They made the golden calf, right? They made an idol. And you know what they say? History repeats itself. And those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. In February of 2021, at the Conservative Political Action Conference, does anybody know what happened? People who identify as Christian literally built a golden statue of Donald Trump. I can't make this up. And here's the funniest part. The statue was made in Mexico. I'm not making this up. These are all facts. It's facts. I just wondered, did they even read the Bible? Did they read that part right there? Did they miss Sunday school that day? Because I'm pretty sure, God wasn't happy. Right? He was talking fury and anger and lots of Old Testament wrath at that point. Right? I don't know. Now, if we superimpose this today, extrapolate that, 2023. Are Africans still not oppressed? Are we still not subjugated and beaten, disrespected and silenced? Are the Jews still not attacked and murdered right here in this city? I'm not making this up. The Bible and the Quran are books largely about Africans. Because where's the principal setting of these tales? I'm going to tell you what it's not. It's not England. It's not France. It's in Egypt, which is where? Africa. I mean, I'm no super educated scholar. Matter of fact, man didn't even go to university in that. But I'm pretty sure in Egypt, a country that's in Africa, is probably going to have some dark-skinned people. I'm just guessing. I don't know. I also find a great deal of irony knowing that in a place called America's Bible Belt, it tends to boast the most vile and lethal forms of white supremacy. I guess they got to hold their pants up with something. Thank you for catching that. I thought that was clever myself. I rap, so I gotta have something clever. My metaphors and that be on point. Many of the early civil rights movement used the church as a catalyst for change. And who were they demanding this change from? White Christians. And since we just passed Martin Luther King Day, I wanted to take an excerpt from the often whitewashed and sanitized Birmingham jail letter. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's a specific passage that never, ever gets quoted or offered to substantiate MLK Day. I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the White Citizens Council or the Ku Klux Klan, but rather the white moderate who is more devoted to order than justice. I'm just going to stop that right there because I want to come back to something. Isaiah 1:17, learn to do good, seek justice, correct oppression, bring justice to the fatherless, and plead the widow's cause. Can I get an amen? Amen. They must have missed that part of the Bible, too, on Sunday school. I don't know. But I thought that was pretty clear. In so many of these spaces where we talk about Martin Luther King, we talk about activism, we talk about Black History Month, we talk about just social justice in general, the first thing you think of when you hear activists is Black people. And there's a fair degree of media programming that goes with that. I'm going to just, everybody can just listen to me on this one. If I say terrorists, you have an idea of somebody. Even though the Department of Justice says most terrorists are homegrown and domestic and white. That's a fact. I didn't make this up. This is from the DOJ. You can holler at them. If I say immigrant or illegal alien, I like that word better. What do you think of? Think of somebody Mexican. When, in fact, most illegal aliens are from the country of Canada. It's another fact. Holler at Homeland Security, they got the stats for you. But when you think about the prophets, you think about white men with anglicized names. But I guarantee you, if you take a time machine about 2,000 years back and you go to England, they ain't speaking the English we talking right now. They're not talking to queens and that. They're not talking to king and that. So how are we going to have English names for people who didn't speak English? And this is why language and attention to these details that I didn't write the Bible, I didn't write the Quran. I wasn't alive long ago to describe these people, but it's important that we represent and advocate for the proper context of historical figures and texts of faith, not as a cry for nationalism, but to distance ourselves from white supremacy. And if your religion is indeed in line, it would make you more Christ-like. And while Jesus may have famously said, love thy neighbors, he also flipped tables. Can I get an amen? Come on. Here's the thing about Jesus, right? If he were alive today, will he be stopped and frisked? Hair of wool? Feet of copper? I know a whole bunch of brothers that fit that description. Would he pass checkpoints? Would he be able to walk a dog or go through a neighborhood for a jog, bird watch, or use the washroom at Starbucks, or drive a car without fearing for his life? Who did Jesus hang out with? Poor people. Who did he advocate for? Prostitutes and poor people. And since we're talking about the Bible and the crucifixion, who was Jesus next to? Thieves. And he said, you two are cool, don't worry about this. Today's activists in Pittsburgh, you know what they're advocating for? Sex workers and those battling housing instabilities. If some people who love the teachings of Jesus as much as they love the idea of the Americanized Jesus, maybe we wouldn't need activists. Come on. And I love that you talked about civil disobedience, because that's where I'm about to go right now. As citizens who witness acts of civil disobedience and protests, you might have looked at these protests and be like, well, if they were following the law, right? And maybe if they did it this way, or maybe if they protested this way, or maybe they didn't kneel, or maybe if he just complied, or maybe if he just stayed in his house, or maybe if he was driving too fast, maybe he was driving too slow, maybe he was walking his dog too fast, maybe he was someplace he didn't need to be, right? What if they said that about Moses? If only he would have let Pharaoh continue to mistreat the Jews. If only Jesus had not annoyed Tiberius and stopped walking around just performing miracles. Hey, I'm Jesus, I got miracles, right? Maybe Pontius Pilate wouldn't have ordered his death. So is it Jesus' fault? Is it Moses' fault? Is it black people's fault for existing? I'm going to come to John 19, verse 10 and 11, because this is like where Jesus get kind of gangster. He says, Pontius Pilate said to him, do you refuse to speak to me? Don't you realize I have power to either free you or crucify you? And you know how Jesus answered? You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. You can't do nothing to me without the ordainment of God. So I ain't worried, bro, because I'm good with God. Right? What is the largest enemy of activism right now? State violence. Who is the largest persecutor of Christ? The state. With what? Violence. And lots of it. In the media, activists aren't always regarded highly, right? However, in the communities we exist, because the absence of safety, There's no church, there's no mosque, there's no temple that's going to protect you from white supremacy. We see that here. That's a fact. We all seen Tree of Life. We all seen Antoine. We all seen Jim Rogers. We all seen George Floyd. We all seen Philando Castile. We all seen Breonna Taylor. We all seen Sandra Bland. I hate doing this because I have to ramble off so many names, so I just kind of stop it right there, but there's so many more. Jordan Miles was here. I remember before I moved here, there was Johnny Gamage. Activists. Activism in the present form is advocacy against oppression and wrongdoing in the absence of a protectorate from the area in which you live. Dr. King said a riot is the response to injustice. The protests that happened here by the youth organizers, who are some of the bravest human beings that I've ever met, were 100% peaceful. And they were filled with chanting, marching, and dancing. And just humor me. What did David do when he seen the Ark of the Covenant come into the city? He danced. Ephesians 5:19, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody with your heart to the Lord. I try to tell you, man, the Bible is a manual for good trouble. I'm not making this up. The same terror and trials, the same horrors one must face as they did 1,000 years ago, as a testament of faith, a proclamation of servitude and freedom, and for pleas for liberation still exists today. Now, whether that's an indictment against the human condition, more than anything else, I can't be sure. But what I do know, what I know as a black, Arab, Muslim living here, is the hypervigilance I have whenever I leave my house, when I drive my car. Anybody that know me, I'm in the gym 3-4 hours a day. Right? I don't even jog in white neighborhoods anymore after Ahmaud Arbery because I don't want to be too suspicious in a neighborhood where I don't look like the residents. I live on the top of Penn Avenue in Wilkinsburg, so I got a hill that I got to go down and up. So listen, I go 2 miles down, 2 miles up. 2 miles uphill is wow. 2 miles downhill, easy. But that uphill, especially in June, July, August, come on, man. But I love it, though. I love it. God gave me the strength from just a vessel. I know that I'm not a prophet, right? And during these interfaith dialogues, discussions, and sermons, whatever you want to call it, we can all talk about our differences, right? I had an imam used to say about interfaith collaboration, we already know what our difference is. Let's talk about what we agree on, right? I'm definitely not holier than anybody in this room, let alone the planet. But what I do know, what I know because I live it, I see it, I witness it, I breathe it, I see it all around me. Black followers of God, regardless of what they call themselves, have been persecuted, criminalized, and killed just for saying, "Let my people go." Thank you.
Reverend Kate and Reverend Farooq have given us a lot of examples today of ways to march in the light of God, to sing in the light of love, to dance in the light of love, to go to jail for breaking unjust laws. There are a lot of ways to move in the light of God. So I invite you to sing. The words are in your order of service. We are marching in the light of God. 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 We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light of God. We are marching, marching, we are marching, marching, we are marching in the light. We are singing, we are singing in the light of love. 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 We are singing. Oh, we are singing in the light of love. We are singing. Oh, we are singing in the light of love. We are moving. We are moving in the light of God. 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 We are moving, moving, we are moving, moving, we are moving in the light of God. We are moving, moving, we are moving, moving, we are moving in the light of
Big, big thank you to Chris and our community singers. And are we on, Andrew? Big, big thank you for all of those who are bringing worship together this morning. As always, please bring your voices together as we extinguish our chalice. The words are in our heart as well as in the order of service. We extinguish this flame.
But not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together.
Go forth into this world, my beloved. Go forth into this world. Listen to the words of the prophet. They may even be your own words. They may even be your own words. Be prophets, be guides, be the light, because we are led by some powerful words which are simple. Let my people go. Return again in love. Blessed be.
5, 6, 7, 8. We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
so much.
You too.